Hello, family. Many people are looking forward to the day of America's decline. However, it should be noted that America cannot fall yet, because Eastern powers have not yet figured out how to take over the world. The change in world order is not an overnight matter. It requires a new hegemon to be prepared with a comprehensive plan to manage the world. Looking at the current US debt of $36 trillion, the government is polarized. The wealth gap is significant. Domestic issues are also rampant. Every year, just paying the interest costs $1 trillion. That's more than the US military spending. Meanwhile, Eastern powers are launching the 6th-generation fighter jets, the Type 076 submarine, and the KJ-3000 AWACS. In the military industry, a systematic lead is beginning to form. Not to mention the comprehensive advancements in the industrial sector. From building rockets to making large aircraft, down to producing shoes and lighters. This defines an industrial foundation. It's complete and good. This means they don't need a global supply chain. They can produce everything themselves, not giving a single hair to others. Last year, the industrial output of Eastern powers accounted for 35% of the world. If they continue to develop this way, with per capita GDP in the top 3 globally, and if GDP doubles again, the industrial output could account for 80% of the world. At that time, how will other countries survive? In fact, based on the development model of Eastern powers, they are following a path of self-sufficiency. After completing industrialization, they have effectively blocked all paths for future industrialization. Why? First, other countries lack cheap and abundant industrial electricity. China's industrial electricity scale is 5 times that of the US. It's twice that of the G7. To compete with China in industry, other countries need thermal power, nuclear power, hydropower, and wind power. However, China has reached agreements with the US, Europe, and Japan to stop exporting coal, thermal power projects, and nuclear power. Face safety issues. Developing countries also hesitate to invest in hydropower and wind energy. The best technology is in China. But without thermal and nuclear power, stable supply cannot be achieved. Second, there is a lack of competition in the entire industrial chain. A US survey found that companies wanting to leave China discovered that new locations lack the support China offers. They still rely on China. The cost of supporting them is higher. Moreover, 2/3 of China's exports are from private enterprises. These enterprises do not have the mobility of foreign companies. Third, there is a lack of a huge homogeneous market for support. China is the only industrial country with a billion-level population. It has a massive internal demand market, making it easy for enterprises to innovate. Once scaled up, they can supply globally. As long as the Chinese market is well developed, it will naturally be a top 500 company globally. Fourth, AI is on the horizon. Leading countries will solve manufacturing costs through automation. Other countries will struggle to develop manufacturing through the old model of industrial transfer. If Eastern powers achieve seamless integration of AI and production lines, with fully automated production, then they will dominate the world. China, Japan, and Korea will not reconcile. They cannot reach an agreement. Why? Because Eastern powers are currently taking jobs from the Japanese and Koreans. This includes automotive and IT jobs. Everything is being disrupted. China survives through foreign trade. Without foreign trade, Japan and Korea would be independent and doomed. Currently, Japan and Korea maintain a trade surplus because the US market is highly profitable, even though US consumers face high inflation. For Japan and Korea, this is a money-making opportunity. If Japan and Korea abandoned the US market for China, they would be seeking their own demise. Dining in Korea is very expensive. In Seoul, a decent meal costs at least 100 renminbi. In Japan, 10 kilograms of rice costs 4,600 yen. The people of Japan and Korea can eat only because they are physically making a living by profiting from the US market. America is essential to Japan and Korea. They cannot betray their benefactor to embrace competitors. After South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol was released from prison, his approval rating surged to 51%. This is because previously apolitical young Koreans view the opposition leader as a traitor to Korea. Korean industries are being replaced by China every day. Samsung may have revenue, but it lacks profit. Some may wonder, why has the US been able to lead for so many years? The US has only 200 million people, while Eastern powers have 1.3 billion. America cannot absorb so many industrial sectors. It chooses to transfer industries to developing countries, moving low-end production lines. Then it focuses on financialization to reap benefits worldwide. For instance, over 60% of Samsung's shares are in Wall Street. Koreans own less than 20% of their own company. Companies that have fought for decades in industries have become American-owned. Regardless of how harshly the US exploits, the smaller nations still receive a little. However, Eastern powers only sell minerals and primary crops, becoming a dumping market for commodities, with friendly nations being those types of countries. Look at the Middle East selling oil. Brazil sells soybeans. Argentina sells beef. Russia sells natural gas. Not far off. Looking at East Asia, Japan and South Korea are in direct competition. Consider home appliances, mobile phones, cars, shipbuilding. In recent years, Japan and South Korea have faced continuous economic decline. Large companies are collapsing one after another. Japan's major economic pillar is the automotive industry. Of the three major automakers, Honda and Nissan are on the verge of collapse. Toyota is barely holding on. At most, Japan and South Korea will transform from developed to developing countries. Their industries will completely collapse, and the environment is deteriorating. They have no qualifications to sell agricultural products. In the past 2 years, there has been an explosion of artificial intelligence and industrial robots. This has led to a drastic decrease in labor costs in the market, causing industrial product prices to plummet. Products that used to cost hundreds are now often available for $20, shipping included. In the next 3 to 5 years, factory assembly lines will be fully automated. At that time, the prices of industrial products may continue to decrease. Low-priced industrial goods will destroy any industrial system in the country. Eventually, it seems that only one developed country will remain. The rest of the world will revert to developing countries. Although the US is relatively declining, it remains the world's only superpower. The status of a superpower cannot be replaced in just a few years, especially without a new global governance solution emerging. While the East is rapidly rising in military and economic terms, the management of world order is a complex system. Like the dollar system, trade rules represented by the WTO, the international order under the UN framework, the global financial system, and the World Trade Network. These systems have been built by the US over decades. For the East to take over the world, it needs to propose its own solutions. Otherwise, the fall of the US will only bring global chaos, not a new order led by the East. The global landscape is undergoing unprecedented changes. The East is rising, while the US is in relative decline. However, the transition between old and new orders is not instantaneous. In the next decade, the world will face significant changes. The East must continuously confront its own global governance proposals to provide better choices for the world. At the same time, vigilance is needed against the risks and challenges of a potential warring states period. Finally, it is hoped that everyone will like and follow the strategic insights of Xiao Jiomei. In such a complex situation, let me help clarify things for you.